Hello and welcome to All Stats Aren't We, a podcast in which Leeds fans cast their combined eye over goings on at Ellen Road, giving scrutiny to the underlying statistics and tactical footings at work at Leeds United. I'm Adam Elliott, the last minute winning goal of the podcast. Beautiful. Just beautiful. And I'm joined today by the last minute winning goal for West Ham United of the podcast. Just like this man, not so beautiful. It's Martin Riley. Martin, how are you doing? I didn't write that, everyone. I didn't write that. It wasn't me.
I wrote that for myself, so it's totally fine. I'm all good. I'm doing well. I've had a really nice tea. My favourite meal of all time, homemade lasagna, and with some garlic bread. And it was banging. I've had a really good, cool day, chill day. So ready to pod with you, Adam. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm very well. Big weekend. Not just the Leeds win. I had a party after it. At my age now, and I'm not that old, I'm one of the younger members of the pod, I don't like being out till really stupidly late in the morning if I go on a night out. But this one was a throwback to when I was about 18, 19, because it was a very, very late home time. So that's had a bit of a knock-on effect through the week, but otherwise I'm fine now. I too have had a really nice dinner, tea, or whatever else, supper, whatever else you want to call it, wherever you're from in the world. I call it tea. I had a homemade sausage pasta. Yeah, another pasta, yes, but a better one than usual. A bit more effort went into it with fennel and chilies. It was really, really good, to be fair. And I'm having a lasagna tomorrow, Martin, so I'm copying you there. But otherwise, really well. And we're recording a bit earlier tonight, so we've both only just eaten. Hopefully none of it around our mouths on the video. But that reminds me, if you are watching on YouTube, please leave a like and a comment with some feedback. And if you're not, please go over and subscribe on YouTube. You don't have to watch it, but it'd be nice for us to have a few more people subscribing and watching for sure. It will help us grow. Let's talk about news first, because there has been quite a bit, Martin. Let's start with the injuries before we get to transfer stuff. So this weekend's game was a particularly good win. We'll probably come and talk about why. But two of the big reasons why were because we had Jacobi out, who has been a mainstay for a while now in our back three. That's probably the most kind of obvious player for the central centre-back role. And then we also had Anton Stack out, who hopefully should be back for Everton, but Beale is out for, well, at the time of recording, it should be 2 to 4 weeks. Hopefully 2 or 3. It's the lower end of that. But what are your thoughts first on those things?
Not good that Beale is out for as long as he is. 2 to 4 weeks is a significant amount of time. He will miss 3-4 games. Hopefully back sooner than that. But it's not a great thing. But we do have cover. We do have players who can step in, so it's not as much of an issue as it could have been. I'm quite happy with the backup options we've got for centre back. Obviously, he is our main central centre back who would use there, but with him, then we got Rodon shifting to the middle. That works. So I'm not having an issue there. And James Justin, if anything, is maybe in some ways an upgrade on Joe Rodon as a outside centre back, mainly for the in possession stuff, because that's right side of centre back generally operates as more of a right back in possession. Pretty much is a right back, to be honest, when we've got the ball.
And what position is James Justin's first position?
He's a right back, yes.
Oh,
so
wow.
That works quite nicely. And he himself says that he's a right back or right-sided centre-back. I watched an interview with him recently and he was talking about that, how he's happy to play in both roles and he's comfortable doing both. And I think that role does work really well for him, so it's not too much of an issue. And I also don't... Bornau is a bit of a step down from Justin in possession, in my opinion, but out of possession is probably just as good defensively as him. So it's not an issue for the short term. If it was longer than it is, then that would be a bigger problem. And Anton Stack, hopefully it's just going to be missing 1 game, maybe 2 if he's not quite ready for Everton. So we can deal with that. But again, if it was much longer, then that also could pose an issue. But it's a good win considering the players that we had out.
and we'll probably talk about that in more detail later, so I won't labour on him. But I will say, yeah, in particular, I think Stacker's the biggest blow. For the reasons you said at centre back, I think we can make that work. But Stack is probably our best player. So he's kind of everything we need him to be in midfield for a team down the bottom end physically. And then I was having a look at some data points earlier, and he's the second in the squad for expected goals plus expected assists after Calvert-Lewin. Most big chances created in the squad, all of these kind of things. So he's a really important player in so many ways. So it's a shame he's out, but hopefully it is just the one game, and maybe the Everton game being on Monday and not on Saturday or Sunday might help him a little bit because it gives him an extra day or two as well. Another thing, Martin, and I'll give ourselves a bit of a pat on the back for this because, I did mention it a while ago. I said, I can't remember which pod it was, can't remember when. It might have been kind of the end of December when we were coming into the January window. I said on one of them, wouldn't be that surprised if we go back in for Facundo Buonanotte. He's not getting a look in at Chelsea. I didn't even realise how bad it was, but he played 45 minutes of Premier League football for them, which is, terrible. And lo and behold, a couple of weeks into the window, we signed him, and he was involved in the squad against Fulham, although he did get the Chelsea treatment by not coming off the bench. But I guess he's going to have to warm into that, knowing Daniel Farke with a lot of signings, especially January signings. That's usually the case. But yeah, how do you feel about signing Buonanotte? Are you happy about it?
Yep, very happy. It's a profile that we needed in the squad, and he is a very fun player. I've been doing some watching of him in anticipation from writing an article, which is actually already written, just waiting on editing and some GIFs being made by myself, but all the actual writing work is done. So that will be coming to patrons over the next couple of days, I would imagine. But yeah, he's a very good player, and he'll definitely upgrade us in the final third. And he's also a very capable player out of possession as well. He's got a lot of things in common with Brendan Aronson in certain respects, but I won't go into too much detail. I'll let you read the article for that for the patrons, and people who don't subscribe, get subscribing if you want to know more.
It should be live by the time people are hearing this, to be brutally honest. I think it will be. I'll have a look at it in a bit, and yeah, you just need to make the gifts. Yeah, he's someone that, like you say, profile we were missing. I think the question mark is going to be where we see him fitting in. I think personally, without spoiling Mine's article, because maybe I have my own thoughts on it anyway, so I might as well give them. I think if you wanted to use him in the current kind of setup, I think you might have to tweak some things a little bit. He could play the Aronson role of somewhere between a right centre mid and a right winger, which is the kind of role he's been picking up. You could play him as an out-and-out 10 behind two strikers, I guess. But Buonanotte is a number 10 or kind of right-sided playmaker because he likes to drift in centrally because he's left-footed. So the reason we were going for Harry Wilson was because he's similar kind of profile in that sense. Obviously, they do things in slightly different ways in terms of their best attributes, but the kind of positions they're taking up and operating in, and a lot of their skill set does overlap. And so I'm excited for Buonanotte. He's got a good strike from range. He seems to link play fairly well between midfield and attack, something that probably will improve with time as well because he is naturally a playmaker. Set piece taker that's left-footed, that's not Ilya Gruev or Jack Harrison is quite nice, I think. You needed to get one in because Harrison's gone. That was a joke. And then, what else? Can you say he's nice and versatile, like I say, so you can play a couple of different roles in the team. If we do switch back to a 4-2-3-1, you could play him as a number 10 or a right winger. If you wanted to get another midfielder in the team, if you play a 4-3-3, you could put him on the right. There's just so many ways you can play him. But you do need to get the right blend of profiles around him. So I see a lot of people dropping Okafor, for example. I think you need some speed in your attack. If you have another player we're going to talk about in a second, Buonanotte, Calvert-Lewin and Strand Larson, for example, if that was our front three, looks pretty nice on paper, but where's the speed? Is it the wing backs then at that point? Do you need a midfielder that's a bit more leggy in terms of speed? I don't know. None of those players are slow that I've just named, but none of them are absolute lightning. So, that's something to consider as well. But I do think he adds something. The only kind of negative thing is that he didn't come off the bench here even for 10 minutes, and That's a bit of a shame because he can't play against Brighton, which means I think we're on 22 games played, aren't we? So there's 16 league games left. He can't play in one of them. I think he can play in the cup, but that's still not a lot of game time he's going to get between now and the end of the season for us, albeit it will be a lot more than he was getting at Chelsea. I've kind of spoiled it, Martin, but let's talk about Strand Larsen for a second. I know we've not signed him, but what's your just initial thoughts on the rumour itself and hearing about this one? Because I don't think David Ornstein would tweet what he's tweeted when he broke the news without there being something more to it. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I'd be happy with him. It would definitely be a good player to complement our existing strikers, and it would be a sight to behold seeing him and Calvert-Lewin up top. That would really be embracing the Big Bastards FC in its entirety. And yeah, that I would be happy to sign him. Do we have the PSR wiggle room to get it done? Can there be some sort of shenanigans with loan with an obligation, considering Wolves may be at the point where they're accepting relegation, so they're trying to bookend some more funds now than what they would be able to if they were to get relegated and still had these players on the books. So it's whether a deal can be done, but I'm not saying whether it's going to get done. I think there's too much that could happen in between now and the end of the window. That it's a possibility. I'd be open to it. And yeah, we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I'd be very, very open to a loan with an obligation if that's how we could do it. I think that'd be great. If Wolves will allow us to do it, and basically, work the books in such a way that it looks better for us going into next year when PSR isn't even a thing. But anyway, that doesn't matter. That's for another day. Yeah, I like him as well. I think he's a really good profile. Just so many things to like about him from last season. And yeah, Wolves have been poor this season, even though they're unbeaten in 4 now with 3 draws and a win. It might be longer than that with the Cup. It might be unbeaten in 5, actually. But I don't know if it matters that Strand Larsen's struggled a bit and 3 of his 6 goals have come against Shrewsbury in the Cup. I don't know if it matters. I think he had 14 last season in the Premier League. Any striker coming in his early 20s to the Premier League for the first time and scoring 14 for a team in the bottom half has to be at least decent, and he was. And anyone that watched Wolves 5 or 6 games last season could have told you, yeah, this is a decent player. And quite a lot of people will watch a lot more than that and will say, yeah, he's a decent player. So I would like him. I would love that front two, even though don't fully know what would go on behind them. I think it would be a really fun front two to have, the physicality and the size of them. So yes, please, Leeds, if you can. Anyway, let's get into the game summary, shall we? And talk about the actual thing that we're here today to discuss, which is Fulham. Right, it was a 1-0 win, but there's plenty to say here, so let's go. Leeds approached the game in a 3-4-3 shape, with Fulham opting for a 4-2-3-1. Both sides had spells of possession throughout the first half, however, Fulham were the more ball-dominant overall. In terms of chance creation, it was a pretty dull half, with neither side really able to penetrate the opposition box often, with the best chance for Leeds being a volley from Brendan Aronson. For much of the second half, it was quite similar to the first, with Fulham edging possession stats, but Fulham this half really struggled to create anything, with the Cottagers only generating a total of 0.08 expected goals. Leeds took some time to get going, but eventually they were the more dominant in terms of chances, creating a total of 4 big chances across the half, with the best of the chances coming late on after subs were made for both teams. It didn't seem like the winning goal was going to arrive. However, it did. That's thanks to a cross from none other than our captain, Ethan Ampadu, on the right wing, which Lucas Metcher stretched to get on the end of and converted past Bernd Leno to make the score 1-0 in the 91st minute. Leeds almost extended the lead further, not long after the goal, but Metcher was kept out this time by a fine save from Leno, and the game ended 1-0 to the Whites, which is a funny way to say that because they also go by the Whites. And hearing them on the other podcast that I went on this week for them, they called them the Whites. So I was like, you can't do that. Not when you play Leeds. It doesn't work. So I like that you've got some own back there. But anyway, let's get into the questions. But before I do, just some stats of note to go over. Leeds are 46% of the ball to Fulham's 54. But in terms of shots, we had 14, 5 on target. They had 8, 1 on target with an expected goals of 1.43 for Leeds and 0.39 for the visitors. And 5, I don't know how that was 5 big chances for Leeds, but 5 big chances for Leeds in the end. Right then, Martin, in this game, we conceded the lowest amount of XG so far this season in any match. It feels a bit championshipy. That's the kind of one where we won it 2-0. And instead, we got one in like the 60th minute and then one in the 90th minute to make it 2-0. But yeah, they only had 0.4 in this. So how did we achieve this, in your opinion?
So I think, for one, the back line defended superbly. I think there were times where Fulham were able to get past our forward press, and I wasn't always satisfied with what we were doing in the press in this game. Fulham were able to get around it, but it took a few like last ditch sort of interceptions or tackles or just hustling people off the ball when they got to our box. And there was a few moments where Fulham either didn't make the right choice with the ball, or they made the right choice but the execution was a bit off, or one of our players intercepted the ball before it got there. So I think overall we were better than them physically, especially in the second half. I think they were struggling more in the second half. First half, they were able to get through the press a bit more easier, and then the final action let them down. But in the second half, they weren't even too often breaking through the press and getting into our half really that much. So as the game wore on, it looked less and less likely that they were going to score, and more likely that we were going to score. Yeah, we just really wore them down in this one. And yeah, we just defended superbly in our third. But the forward part of it wasn't the best. We was going for some kind of man-to-man approach in certain phases of the game, similar to what we did against Leicester at that time in the Championship in Farke's first season, where any players who were dropping deep, we had someone picking them up straight away, so they couldn't try to help out, but they were able to get around that just with some nice play. Marco Silva's got a good build-up approach, so that he was able to get around it a few times in the first half, but second half wasn't as easy. But yeah, the back line all defended superbly, in my opinion.
Yeah, just to illustrate one of the things you were talking about there, Fulham, we went man to man, like you say, in especially that first half. It felt pretty obvious that we were pressing quite aggressively man to man, which was a slightly strange decision for me, given that we knew that Fulham were going to possess the ball quite a bit. And I know they didn't completely dominate possession share; it was only slightly edged by them in both halves. But just in terms of the touches and the passes from their centre backs, just to illustrate what we were saying, the player with the most touches for us was James Justin with 80. They had 2 players with more than that. Their 2 centre-backs, Jorge Cuenca, 87, and Joaquim Anderson with 107. In terms of passes overall, Pascal Strout had the most for us with 55. That was a massive amount less than their 2. Cuenca had 74, which is 19 more. Anderson nearly had double. He had 93 passes in this match. So they were just kind of like, in the first half especially, the centre-backs were just kind of able to knock it around us pretty easily, and it didn't look the best. So the next question I'll jump into now, because I was going to ask, there was certainly a split between the first and second 45. For example, Wiggy asked, and you can answer that one in a second, about Justin. He said he only saw the second half, but Justin seemed to be playing more in attack than defence. Did we notice that? And I wanted to ask about what was different in the second 45. And basically, I think we just attacked more and we weren't as aggressive with our press, but we were just in areas where the ball was just able to be turned over better. So we were just able to keep them pinned a bit more. And they weren't just having the ball and being able to knock it between each other and then around us. And it was all a bit disjointed. And although Fulham in the first half didn't have many chances, that many shots or anything like that, they had the same amount of shots as us, and actually in terms of expected goals, slightly less than us, with 0.29 to our 0.43. But to me, they just felt in control of the game, Martin. Like, if it didn't feel like they were going to necessarily score, but like they were just able to get the foothold, to get us where they wanted us in certain phases. And maybe if their last action was better, they'd have been more dangerous. But like you said, Strouk, Roden had really good games here defensively, in particular, Justin as well as the back 3, and were just able to kind of clean up. And that was important. But there were so many times where they were able to get around our midfield, and suddenly it was like after Ampadu had jumped, they were able to kind of get bodies forward in dangerous areas. In the second half, it just didn't really happen. Like the only moment that did, we'll talk about later on, was when Darlow rushed out of his goal. That was a bit dangerous, but other than that, it really didn't do anything. They had another free kick that went miles wide with the delivery in a dangerous area. Honestly, like there was just nothing else to go at. And we just kept them where we wanted them. And like you said, it just felt like we attacked more. And we grew into the game almost in that sense. So just to illustrate the stats on this, 9 shots in the second half to our 5 in the first, but 1 expected goals to 0.43 and 4 big chances in the second half out of the 5 we had in the entire game as well. Like we were just so much better. The set pieces were a bit better as well. It wasn't necessarily a constant barrage of Leeds attacks, but we just had the ball in better zones of the pitch. So I just think we were pushed that little bit higher, weren't allowing their centre backs to kind of just knock it between each other as much and knock it over us as much. And so yeah, suddenly we looked way better. The admin chat, we talk about this as well. The first half, didn't necessarily think they were going to score Fulham, but they were the kind of, I guess, more in control team of the match in that half. Is that how you saw it as well?
In the first half, I would say, yeah, that they did edge it. I wouldn't say they were in control of the game. We did still have dangerous moments, especially when we went more direct to Calvert-Lewin. He did do a good job of managing those long balls, which primarily it was Darlow who was putting them forward, and he was able to impose himself on their centre-backs quite well, I felt. But yeah, Fulham definitely did edge it in the first half, I felt, but it was we weren't attacking that great, and I think the adjustments we made was the high press wasn't as man to man, and the counter press that we was doing when we did lose the ball was a little bit more aggressive. So it's a bit of a weird one because part of the press was less aggressive, part of it was more aggressive. So it's meant that we were able to pin them in at times, and when we did attack, we was able to attack again, and that's exactly what happened with the winning goal. We'd attacked, they got it back, we won the ball back, and then quickly attacked again after the counter press, and Ampadu was just fell into a good position to put that cross in. But yeah, I think the main thing for the second half was why it was different to the first and why we was able to get more control. I think we just really wore them down, and I don't think they was able to keep up with us physically, and that aggression in the counter press did help, even though they were able to get around it at times in the first half.
Yeah, I think you articulated that better than me in what I was trying to say in terms of the zones we were keeping them on the pitch and where we pressed a bit differently. But yeah, it was also just that players were higher. So like Wiggy said, Justin was attacking more or just seemed to be forward more. And yeah, I think that was a big part of it. Players were just in the right areas to win the ball back a bit better. So yeah. We then asked in the Discord by Al if we agreed with Farke with what he said in his post-match comments about it being the best win of the season. He said, "We fully deserved to win. We didn't give one real chance away and kept a clean sheet after losing late on to Newcastle and this game away, plus sucker punches of losing Beal and Stack, then other results as well. It's the best win." That's what he said. Those are exact quotes from Adam Pope. But yeah, just the nature of this, obviously the reverse fixture, the late loss, the keeping a clean sheet, Martin, the barely giving any chances away, losing late on to Newcastle, being without those 2 players, all those other things. A few of these were mentioned in the Discord as well. So if you're not in there, you should be in there, about how we executed the plan and all of that. So can you see what Farke's saying? Do you agree with him?
I do agree in a way. That all the points that he mentions does make it that quite satisfying, because the way the previous fixture, especially, they won to a late own goal, and I think a draw was probably a fair result on the day. And obviously the recent results as well for us. All what Farke says, I can understand where he's coming from, but for me, I would prefer to have just won a bit earlier. Yeah, it was nice and dramatic, but we did struggle to create for large parts of this game, and so for me, that why it wasn't ideal. Although we did end up with quite a lot of big chances, it did take us a while to break them down. Definitely a good win. Not going to complain about it being a win. Fulham were in good form as well before this. They hadn't lost in 6 games, I think, something like that. So we did a good job to get the win, and I can definitely understand where Farke is coming from. I think the clean sheet point, especially, I think will have been a big thing for him. But yeah, for me, not the best win of the season, but yeah, it's close. It's up there. It was a good late win.
Is that our only 90th minute win of the season? I think it was.
Yes, I believe it was. Yeah,
we've had some late winners, but not 90th minute.
We've had late equalisers, but I don't think we've had late winners.
So, yeah, Tanaka was an equaliser, wasn't it? For example. So yeah, there's been ones like that, and yeah, I think another point here is, and Hosty made a point of like, we haven't won post 90 minutes this season. In fact, I think we've lost post 90 a lot of the season, and that could also be part of the reason why Farke said it. And I agree with that. Just on the numbers, we've been over this before, but we've not had an update on this for a while. We have scored 15 goals in the first half of matches and 15 goals in the second half of matches, and that's fine. That's great. But the problem area has been that we've conceded 12 goals in the first half of matches. We've conceded 25 in the second halves of matches, so we've been ending games quite poorly, quite meekly, conceding goals. Like, some of them don't matter, they're insignificant, like the West Ham one, which made it 2-1 in the 90th minute. We still won that. But then Newcastle, there's 2 goals in the 90th minute that both equalise and then win the game. So it's not been great for us. The 10 goals we've conceded in between the 76th and 90th minute is also the most of any 15-minute period of the season. We also end first half strongly, so we've not been ending second half strongly, but we're ending first half strongly. That's our best period of the season. We're 10-3 up in that section. So for all those reasons as well, I think it factors in. So I kind of get what he's saying. Paul then added, our lovely editor, my more serious answer is because we lost 2 key players at short notice, but we were able to execute the plan, as Farke would phrase it. And honestly, that's a huge factor, because I spoke about this with regards to Fulham and Silva and the players they'd lost recently, and how it didn't really matter. Tactically, they were the same, and they usually enacted the game plan really well. So I can see why Paul says that, but then I agree with Paul's overall answer, which is from a pure entertainment and atmosphere factor. I enjoyed Chelsea and Palace more, probably enjoyed the home draw with Liverpool more too, but I can understand the justification from Farke, especially because of West Ham winning. It must have been a blow to them getting a win away at Spurs and then seeing we'd won against a club who hadn't lost for a while in the last minute ourselves, and bouncing back from a loss in the previous game too. So yeah, all that, we've kept the points gap the same to West Ham, extended it over a few other teams below us that drew, managed to claw some points back on teams above us, including Fulham themselves, who are only about 5 or 6 ahead of us now. So all of those reasons as well. I can understand why, but I agree with Paul's answer about probably Chelsea, because they're so dislikable, because they are one of our biggest rivals, and we were, that's probably our best display of the season for 90 minutes. All in all, even with a couple of small iffy bits here or there, it was still pretty dominant for the very most part, which is why I would say that one. Palace at the other, maybe the Bournemouth 2-2 was disappointing end, but that was a good performance as well. But then there's a difference between performances and then the feeling of winning in the last minute, I guess, as well. So I get Farke. I don't fully agree with him, but I get where he's coming from completely. And I think the stack and be-all thing is actually maybe the biggest factor, because they would have had very little notice to they'd have thought about what they were doing all week, and then the last day before they had to make some changes, had to give instructions to those 2 new players that would have had to come in, and it still worked. So lovely stuff. I wanted to ask about this kind of thing, Martin. I know we scored a late winner, and that's grand. But what was your favourite aspect personally from our performance, tactically, individually, or as a team? Or was it literally just that last minute winner? Is that the the factor? That's what's the right word here? The magnum opus of the performance, I guess.
Well, that was obviously a great moment. It definitely was the best part of the game. Of course, you can't say it wasn't, because that's what got us the win. But there were other moments which I liked. Tactically, I wasn't totally 100% happy with the plan, at least in terms of the aggressive high press, which we did for most of the first half. That wasn't the greatest personally for me. But one other individual moment which I really enjoyed was when Goodmanson left Harry Wilson behind in the dust and Wilson had to chop him down and get a yellow card for it. Yeah, I think Goodmanson made Harry Wilson's life a bit of a nightmare in this one. I don't think he could deal with his pace. And yeah, there was a few nice moments from Gabby in this one. Some weren't as great in the second half, but across this game, he did really well defensively and really shut down Sessegnon, who was on that right side, I believe. I know Wilson was hovering between the centre and the right, but it was Sessegnon who was down that right channel, I think, more often. And he really shut him down, and he was subbed off early as a result of that. So, yeah, I think probably his performance was a lot of nice details in there, which I liked.
My personal favourite moment, it does relate to the goal. It's actually the fact that, and I said about it in the game summary, the fact that Ethan Ampadu found himself on the right wing. I was listening to Not a Top 20 yesterday, because I still do that because I'm weird. But they were talking about the fact that Aidan Flint, 6'7" giant centre back for Walsall, was playing at one point in the match. They don't know why he was there, but he popped up as a right winger across the ball, and they scored. And when they were talking about how weird this was, and they couldn't understand why he was there from that phase of play, we know why Ampadu was where he was because it's not too far from his set position. But I still loved the fact that he was showing the kind of leadership, tenacity, whatever you want to call it, to get out there and just put a ball in. Like, he's not renowned for his crossing. He's not the best crosser of the ball, but he got that one spot on, puts it in a dangerous area where we've got a couple of big forwards attacking the box at that point, a couple of midfielders, attacking the edge of the box. You don't know what could happen. It could fall anywhere. And instead it falls perfectly for Metcha to, well, I say perfectly, he still made a lot of it, but I just loved that moment for Ampadu. We'll probably talk about him later on as well, just how good he was here. But yeah, that was fabulous. I actually really like the build up to it as well, because I think it went a bit unnoticed because Metcha was really, really struggling to get into the game when he came on. Like, everything was just going wrong for him, kind of. But on the goal, he actually does a nice little layoff, balls around the edge of their box. Tanaka has to win the scraps. And like, something that maybe he's been questioned over is physicality, but he gets right in there and he manages to shovel the ball out. And that's what creates it for Ampadu. So just a really nice moment in the build-up, even though it wasn't like the most sexy, the goal away to Sunderland-like kind of goal. I just liked a lot of the players involved and how nice they were in little moments there, and it all accumulates into the goal itself. So that was nice for me.
Sorry to interrupt, just a quick one. If you're enjoying the video, be sure to like and subscribe to help us keep the content coming. And if you want even more, you can support us over on patreon.com/ASAW Patreon. You'll get bonus podcasts, exclusive articles, and access to our Discord community, all while helping us make more of the content you love. Thanks. Now let's get back to it.
Right, let's move on to the second half of the analysis, where we're going to discuss specific players' performances in a bit more detail and get your questions in as well. We don't even have to do the bit at the start of this bit, Martin, because we kept a clean sheet, which is wonderful. Only our fourth of the season. Normally we'd say, where did we go wrong with the goal or the goals, plural, that we conceded? But we didn't concede, which is wonderful. So instead, we're going to jump in straight with our Nordic friend, Begangster, who said, how could Buonanotte have been used in this game, and how could it have changed things? I'll let you go first. I do have my own thoughts. But yeah, it is an interesting because he wasn't used, but we still found a winner.
Yeah, I think he could have definitely added something to the game, but I can at the same time understand why he wasn't rushed in immediately. He wouldn't have been as up to speed with the way this team operates. He'd only been in the door a couple of days. He maybe will have had one training session with them potentially. So just him being brought off the bench could have disrupted our attacking patterns more than improved it, if I'm being totally honest. Yeah, he could have come out with a little moment because he can be a moment's player, but ultimately I think the right substitution choices were made by Farke in this one. Maybe I would have liked to see them a little bit earlier than what they were, but the right choices were made, in my opinion, as to the players who were on the bench and who were brought on. I think Nyonto and Tanaka and Mecha were the right choices in that, so I can understand why he didn't. But in how Buonanotte can change things for us and how he operate on the pitch, you'll have to read the article that we've wrote, and that's all I'm going to say.
Yeah, I think he would have added something, not least from set pieces, from what I was saying earlier. But he is just a creative player. Having said that, I do kind of understand the subs. It was interesting that he's not played Longstaff here as well. Like, I was certain that Longstaff would be brought into the game somewhere in there, but no, he did go for a bit more guile with Tanaka. The Metcha thing he's always going to do, irrespective of whether we've won the game or we're losing or whatever it might be. He will always make that sub these days. But I do think Buonanotte would have added something, but I do kind of get it. Like, he trained for, like you said, 1 day, maybe 2 at most. He might have had a small part in the training session the day before, but it's really not a lot, is it? And so it makes some sense. Having said that, he's not got a lot of games with us, as I've said, so it would be nice to get him up to speed quickly. I would love to see him play some part against Everton. Albeit I don't see that being more than about 7 or 8 minutes at best from the bench, but still. But yeah, I think his profile is kind of, in between the lines player. They had quite a big physical back forward by the end of the game, albeit Anthony Robinson is rapid. He did have a very good game, so might have been nice to have seen Buonanotte inverting on a player that was struggling a bit. Probably just overplayed a bit too much Anthony Robinson. He's played a lot of games recently since coming back from injury and all that. So yeah, I would have liked to have seen that, but it's fine because it worked, and we complain about Farke subs enough on this podcast, so I'm not going to complain when we've made subs that have had positive impacts, like we said with Metcha's goal, but Tanaka in the build-up to it, other players did more than well enough, so absolutely fine with me. No problems there at all. Jamie then asked, what's the best use for Metcha in our current squad? I don't really understand why he keeps being played on the left. Yeah, I have to say, Jamie, that I totally agree. Even though he is reasonably quick, he is not the most, I guess, cumbersome, agile, so his turning circle's not the best. His straight line speed's not bad, but his agility's not great. I prefer him as more of a powerful striker, centrally running at the centre-backs or battling with them. If Calvert-Lewin's battling with another one, that's fine with me. I kind of do want a striker this month, even though it feels really harsh to say, doesn't it, when you've just seen a guy score his 5th goal, 6th goal, I think his 5th goal for the club, having not played that many minutes. His goal-to-game ratio, his goal-to-minute ratio is very decent. But I do think we could do better as an all-round player, as more of an athletic profile, as a player that's less injury-prone. So it would be nice to get him knocked down to 3rd choice. It feels really harsh to say this after guys just scored a winning goal, Martin, but it's just how I see it, and I think a few of our pod team probably see it that way as well. But yeah, he's definitely a striker for me, and I think you'd agree, rather than this weird kind of left wing role that he gets put into.
He's not played on the left wing in this game.
No, he's not, but he's still like channel left, and then he pulls
he's
wide.
He's played as a left-sided forward, so he will sometimes go over to the wing. But I watched this part of the game quite a lot because past couple of pods there's been a lot of questions about the Metcha playing on the left, so I wanted to really give this focus. And he wasn't playing as a left winger. He was playing as a left-sided striker who sometimes dropped over to the left. That's why he was in the middle of the pitch when we scored. And because that's where he was playing, he was attacking the box. Sometimes he would move over to the left, but he was primarily occupying what would be a left-sided striker role. And I do kind of want to go back to the previous games now to see if that was also what he was doing in those. I didn't look in it in much detail as what I did in this game. So I think the reaction to his starters was overblown as well, personally. He did have some loose touches. I'm not going to deny that. One pass he made was just kind of ballooned, and it really puts I think it was Pascal Struijk under a bit of pressure.
That was awful.
But he'd only been on the pitch like 9 minutes when he scored. So he can't have been that terrible to say that he scored in that time as well. And like you mentioned before the goal, he had some nice interplay leading up to it as well. So I think he was just warming up onto the pitch, and those first few touches were just rusty moments. He's not played loads of football recently, to be honest, and just the fact that he's got into the right position to score that goal, he just looked really sharp around the box in this one. And despite those few early touches which were bad, which could have knocked his confidence, it didn't. So I think we just need to give him a load of credit for this one, because it was a fantastic finish. It was not easy by any stretch at all. He had to really get to sort of wrap his foot around the defender who was marking him, and he just got it right into the corner as well with that. So yeah, I loved the finish, and yeah, I think that he's not actually playing as left wing was the main thing that I wanted to bring up about this question.
I think he definitely has been more left wingy than left striker-y in other games, if you want to put it that way.
I want to look into it in more detail. After what I've seen this one, I'm convinced that has just been playing as the left side
game
striker.
Not long ago, I can't remember which one it was. It might have been Man United, where we had a couple of attacks and he was much wider left, and then it broke down because of it's just not natural to him. So I kind of get where that's coming from in that sense. Yeah, he was a bit more central here. And he warmed up to the shot as well. I wanted to give him some praise for that because the header he had was a really decent effort. The one that he had just over the bar from a corner, that was unlucky. And that was his best moment before he scored. So, yeah, he, like you said, almost had to warm into it. But please don't pass it at head height to a centre-back in your own half. Never do that again. I'll have an aneurysm. You do that again. That's one of the biggest things you learn as a boy playing football, is not to pass into your own box at that height, like, ever. You just don't do it. You go long. Anyway, Fitzroy Baggers on Blue Sky. We had a few questions there. He asked, also, our goal concession rate has dropped. Does this indicate a more coherent defensive structure in the past 10 games, or just the players getting used to each other? I just wanted to quickly answer this one. Won't take long. Just to say that I do think it's probably both. I think, obviously, there was a change in personnel in the back line here with Biel, but I think players are getting more used to each other. I think players are building those relationships. I think the back three suits quite a lot of the profiles. We've been over this before on this. Like, Strauch is a better, probably less centre back in a 3 than he is a 2, slightly. Biel's certainly a better centre back in a 3 than he is like a left or right centre back in a 2. Rodon's probably the only one that's broadly the same. Don't think it changes too much apart from his role, which, like Martin has said, plays a bit more wide, a bit more as a kind of right back / right centre back. That aspect changes for him, but in terms of his defending, when we're having to defend our box, it's probably about the same for him. But yeah, it's that, and then the goals against Column has reduced as a result of that, but also just having more bodies to defend the box. It's not just the back 3, it's 2 wing backs, that's 5 defenders, and often we have at least 2 defensive midfielders playing. Sometimes it's probably more like 3 in some games we have played this season, even though we've got 3 centre-backs there. So I think we've just got a lot of good physicality, good blended profiles defensively, a lot of players that know their jobs, and that's been better for us, despite the Newcastle game and whatever that was. But everything else, either side of that, has been way better, as we know. So yeah, it's probably a mix of those two things, in my opinion. Martin?
So yeah, I don't think we've really been conceding less as such, because we conceded 3 against Newcastle not that long ago. So just 4 even, yeah. So you can't ignore that. That's a lot of goals to concede. Like, in that game, Newcastle put up 2.4 XG and scored 4 goals. Liverpool put up 2.1 XG against us, and we somehow didn't concede at all. So I don't think we necessarily are better defensively. In this game we were. We did shut down Fulham really nicely. But in the games before this, I wouldn't have said that we were more stable overall, because we have still been conceding chances. And if it wasn't for Liverpool's players and Man United's players maybe not being the sharpest, we probably would have lost both of those games. So I think it's maybe a bit too soon to say that we've turned the corner in terms of the defensive structure. And this game is, of course, I don't want to sugarcoat that part of it, that this game was really good. But before this, it wasn't so much. I think this is more just immediate recency bias in that the past 2 games were against Fulham and Derby, and we didn't concede a whole lot of chances in either of them. So I think that's maybe just a bit of recency bias, but maybe I'm just being a bit too negative. But that is fitting with this podcast for this. So yeah.
Just to go over it in terms of numbers, because I've had a little look now. In 8 of the last 10 games in all competitions, we've conceded 1 or 0. And in 7 of the 8 before that, we conceded 2 or more. So it has, like, not looked at underlyings there. I would like to. Maybe that's something I will do at some point. And looked at expected goals figures and whether that's dramatically changed. I imagine it probably has at least a little bit shifted. in between the first sort of 12 games of the season and this last kind of 10-game stretch. But just on the raw data, the raw figures, it's 8 of the last 10, just to repeat it. We've conceded 0 or 1. And in one of the 8 before that, we managed to concede 0 or 1. The other 7, we conceded 2 or more. So the numbers have definitely improved just in a raw data perspective.
On the goals, yeah, but you could say if you judge on just goals, Burnley were the best defensive team in the league last season in the Championship.
I know,
but
which is why,
we know
like
that
I said,
wasn't true. So
I
yeah,
want to look at both, but I still think it's an interesting point. And I assume that it has at least shifted a bit.
It may have shifted a little bit, but I don't think it's been a massive difference, is what I'm trying to say.
But even if you accumulate, let's say, I'm just going to pluck a number out of the air here. Let's say our expected goals against figures dropped by 0.4 goals in the last 10 games compared to the start of 12 games of the season. If that's the case, then over 10 games, that's 4 goals less expected. That's just a random number I'm plucking out the air, but that's the kind of thing that I would imagine it probably is going to be. I wish we'd actually done the research on this now because it would have been interesting, but I'm not doing it on this podcast right now live because it'll take me at least a few minutes and I'm not doing it.
We'll bring that up to the next pod. Yeah,
we will indeed. Let's have a talk about, on the subject of conceding goals, Darlow, who kept a clean sheet. There's been a lot said about him on socials and quite often, Martin, when a team keeps a clean sheet, that is the bias, the outcome bias that gets attributed to the goalkeeper. That's the reason we conceded no goals against Fulham. The changing goalkeeper, despite the fact that they had, like we said at the start of the podcast, the worst expected goals against figure this season against us, like a team that's never taken less shots and chances. So, there's that to bring into this conversation as well. But obviously there's been a lot of talk about, in particular, pointing to the fact that we kept that overdue clean sheet. Was he a big improvement on Lucas Perry for you overall in this match?
If in terms of, if by better, do you mean when a goalkeeper recklessly jumps out of his box and headers the ball clear and nearly gives it away to an opposition? Is that what you mean by better goalkeeper?
No, there is. Okay. I have seen a little bit of talk about this, by the way. I want your thoughts immediately. I think I know what you're going to say, but if Darlow doesn't come out there is a still of the moment that I've seen where it looks like the ball is dropping. I think it's to Harry Wilson, actually. Not completely through on goal, but kind of in a position where he might get a shot away, and Strauch's the only defender covering at that point. Do you think that Darlow made the right decision based on that factor, or do you have confidence that Strauch would have been able to at least slow him down to the point where other people can recover?
I'm confident that Strauch would have got back and covered in that moment. Yeah.
I personally agree.
It's never a good thing for the goalkeeper to have to come out. If there was like nobody else nearby, then fair play. But there was defenders who were relatively close by to the situation. And let's not pretend Harry Wilson is Dan James. He's not his Welsh compatriot. He's not got pace for days. I think any of our defenders who were around there would have been able to match him for pace and get back in time to slow things down, like you say. So, yeah. But just on Darlow, obviously I've been facetious with my initial answer about this situation. But there's marginal gains with Darlow. Like his distribution is better, especially for the long distance stuff. I just think he really gets his foot through it more and gets more purchase, and it's more solidly goes to the areas where he wants it to go. And maybe there is a slight improvement in communication because he's known this team for longer than what Perry has. But that's about it. There's no real improvements when it comes to shot stopping. He didn't have anything to do in this game other than one shot, which was sent straight at him. This was the most comfortable game you could expect as a goalkeeper, and we still had that really iffy moment from him. So, no, I will not be saying that he was a big improvement on Lucas Perry in this one. There were some slight improvements, but overall, similar. Kettle of fish, really.
Yep, agree. I'm not going to add too much, just to say, there's that. I don't want to go down the Welsh route, but he knows a few of those boys quite well, and there's a bit of an easier communication perhaps there, with it being his first language, just be English. But it's it feels almost insignificant to say it. Like, it's such a minor thing to say that.
It's like I put in the disc that it's like a starving man being given a cracker and thinking it's sirloin steak.
It's not the same.
It's not as big of a difference between them as what you're making it out to be, and it's just performative to say anything otherwise.
I totally agree. Total clutch of straws, those points I was just making there, but I just wanted to say them because I'm sure some people probably were saying them themselves listening. I agree. I think Perry's become a bit too much of a scapegoat, a bit too overhated. I'm not saying like there isn't some fair criticism. I'm not saying the numbers are great because they're not. We've been over this on this podcast, so I'm not going to labour on the point, but I don't fully get it. Like, he's probably been one of the 2 or 3 worst signings, maybe number 1 as well, and he might end up being considered a dud. It might be the only one that gets considered as a dud, considering how many of the others have been pretty good. But I don't think it's still been that bad. I just think he's been not as good as hoped. Okay,
I'm with you.
Anyway, we also had another question from Fitzroy Baggers on Blue Sky about Brendan Aronson. He said, what can explain Aronson's dramatic uptick in form? Is it just confidence and improvement in coaching, or is there something about the tweaks to the system which have really benefited him? He also said that, and I agree with this, so I'm just going to make the point, that Calvert-Lewin has become hugely influential quite quickly with the squad. In overall terms, the majority of the squad seems to be adding a lot of value, and John Dunn in the replies was saying, I've been wondering if Calvert-Lewin has taken Aronson under his wing. I think there has to be something in that a little bit, and I just wanted to give Calvert-Lewin some praise before you jump into Aronson talk, to say that like, he just seems to be a player that's got more of an influence on the squad and the dressing room than probably we realise. I've heard anecdotally, and I don't know if it's true, but I believe it, but that he was one of the players that really got into them at half-time in that Man City game, which you could argue was the turning point in our season so far. And if that's true, then hats off to Calvert-Lewin being one of the ones to kind of step forward and say his piece. I do think he's got those intangibles, and I could see him taking not just Aronson, but a couple of other players under his wing and being a positive influence. I saw a really nice moment, these behind the scenes things they do and these kind of camera moments they catch where he's like bigging up Stack's free kick against Palace. It's just stuff like that I just really like, and I think he's a really, really likeable bloke. So I definitely think he has to take some credit for, some of the players around him perhaps improving. He's probably one of the players that's come into the dressing room and had a big impact, not just on the pitch, but in terms of what he does in there. So I think we've got a good set of lads, to be fair, Martin. I do think a lot of the characters are the right types. So it does help with that as well for someone like Aronson, who maybe does struggle a bit with confidence and maybe isn't the most vocal in the dressing room. He doesn't strike me as that kind of person to be that vocal. So maybe there's that. But then, there's certain things that Aronson's improved on too, right? You can't just give credit to Calvert-Lewin here like I am. I'm not doing that, to be fair. There have definitely been improvements from Aronson or from Farke. So what are they from what Fitzroy Baggers asks?
Well, first of all, on the Calvert-Lewin thing, I think it's all conjecture to say if he has or hasn't taken him under his wing. We can't know that for sure. But just his presence, he's a good attacker, so that will benefit the team around him. Just on the pitch is what I'm talking about here, not necessarily anything to do with coaching or anything like that. But he will improve a squad because of all that he does in possession and out of it. It just generally does make life easier for other attackers around him because he occupies so much thought of the opposition defenders. They have to worry about him more because he's the guy who's in form. He's the guy who's potentially on the verge of an England call-up. He's the second highest scoring English player in the world at the moment. So you've got to say that that's going to occupy a lot of defenders' thoughts, so that will leave space for players like Aronson to get into. But for me, I think the biggest thing which is impacting Aronson in particular is the change in approach, us being more direct and quicker to get the ball forward. If you look at his numbers before this shift, which was the Man City game, that's where we've switched formation, and then following up from that would be more direct, even if, like we've said before, I won't labour on this bit too much, that it's not the shape, it's the style that's important here. That's going more direct to Calvert-Lewin.
Totally agree.
And before this change, Aronson had 2 goal contributions in, I think, I didn't write this down, but I think it's 13 or 14 appearances. And since then, there's been, just to count them all up here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 league games, and he's got, what, is it 6 goal contributions in those goals and assists? Or is it 5? 5 or 6?
Something like that.
So yeah, so he's nearly doubled his rate in terms of the overlying numbers in goal contributions. And that's not to mention the underlying numbers in the terms of the progressive carry distance that he's doing, the amount of passes that he's taking, the amount of touches he's been taking. All of these things are increasing. And I think for me, it's because Brendan Aronson came up through the Red Bull system, right? And what does the Red Bull system favour? Speed and directness. And that is something which they're very big on. So it's natural to me that if you go to a system which suits his strengths more, i.e. directness, speed, these kind of things will help to bring out the best in a player like Brendan Aronson. Whereas last season in the Championship, we weren't able to play quickly because there wasn't space to attack. Every single side was defending their box in massive numbers against us. So that was never going to be a conducive breeding ground for Aronson to do well and get attacking numbers, because he's not the sort of player you want in a possession-orientated system. He's a player that you want in a transitional side. We're not always transitional side. We do look to create things from possession play as well, but a lot more of transitional stuff has been coming into the play with this recent change. And I think for me, that is the biggest thing as to why Brendan Aronson is looking more confident and he's doing better on the pitch, is because the style of football we're playing suits him more.
Yep, I agree. I think it's also something where like he's just improved a little bit in terms of his decision making, and maybe it's that directness that's forced him to do it, like releasing the ball quicker, getting the balls into the box quicker. He's put in a couple of nice crosses into the box in this run as well, with that one at Sunderland in particular. I remember watching that live, and that wasn't the pass I was looking for. I was on the edge of the box for a runner, and instead he sees Calvert-Lewin dart into the middle and scores. So just doing things a little bit better all around as well. But what I will say, just to go back to what you said at the start, I think we're allowed to speculate on intangibles, and I'm allowed to say that Calvert-Lewin is probably doing a lot for this team, and I think he has.
And I'm allowed to say it's conjecture.
Yes, but well, let's just say I've heard.
I'm feeling spicy, Adam. Ignore me.
That's fine. But I've heard things and I believe them. It's not like it's from a nobody. Let's put it that way. Anyway, let's talk about man of the match and standout players. Then I have a pretty obvious one here. You can also throw in any stats you think are noteworthy, Martin, that need bringing up. But yeah, I thought there were a few really, really good performers here. Mine main ones I was going to bring to the table today. Well, I thought James Justin was pretty good. I'm also kicking myself with him a little bit because I asked pre-match that I wasn't sure who was going to take set pieces, despite the fact that when we signed James Justin, I mentioned that for Luton, when he was breaking through and playing in League One, he took set pieces. I think he even scored a free kick or had a really good free kick, hit the bar or something like that I watched live. So I was a bit annoyed that I forgot about that fact. It was pretty obvious when I thought about it. But I thought he played pretty well. I thought one of our other centre-backs, Pascal Struijk, played really, really well. There was a funny moment where he shanked a clearance slightly, didn't get the generated power that he wanted on it. And normally it's one of those situations where some people would jump on his back, but he immediately rectified it by intercepting the ball, like within about 2 seconds of it. And getting quite aggressively in there to do so, and that was fantastic. In general, thought he was the most progressive player for us. He had the most touches in the match. For example, after James Justin, and the man of the match that I had, which was the second most touches in the match for us, was Ethan Ampadu. Not just the assist, I just thought he was everywhere. And even though some of our pressing was a bit disjointed in that first 45, I still really, really liked his performance, just in terms of his tenacity, his willingness. And like, we gave Ampadu a bit of a tough go not long ago on here when we said he needs to step it up a bit because he's making quite a few mistakes, probably around the time of that Burnley game, and just a couple of goals where I was just frustrated where he'd maybe not picked up his runner or just been a bit sleepy. There has been moments since then that have been not great, like the Newcastle game, but in general, Ampadu's levels have raised over the last 2 months. And he's been really good. And I thought he was man of the match here, even though FotMob agreed. They gave him man of the match on their database. And I usually don't like those, but I think they were right to do so.
My turn now. Yeah, I agree. Ampadu was excellent in this one, and he definitely did deserve the man of the match award. Not just for the assist for the winning goal, he put on a captain's performance here, and just all those intangibles that you want to see from him. Really dragged us forward at times. Had desire to win duels, had desire to get the ball forward, progress the ball nicely to players ahead of him to do the attacking stuff, did the defensive work that he needed to do really well. And yeah, he was just excellent. Other players who were like this, I think every part of the back line I was happy with in this game. There were excellent moments from all of them. Gabby Goodmanson, like I mentioned earlier, had some really nice recovery challenges. There's especially one in the first half, which was I think it was on Sessegnon, and the ball was like played over direct from left channel to the right, and he was he was behind him at first, but he managed to get in front of him and win the ball. And yeah, there's a few of moments like that, but I would have given him man of the match if it wasn't for those really weird moments that he had in the second half where he crossed it out really badly, and another one where he I think he tried to go for a shot, but shanked it when he should have cut it across. That was a weird moment.
I was raging at that. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, me too. But yeah, there was a lot of good individual performances here, but there wasn't anyone who I'd say had a bad game. Even Okafor, who a lot of people have been critical on for this one, I don't think he was that bad. He got the ball forward nicely. He linked up well with the players around him, got the ball to the box quite frequently. He's on his dry spell in terms of goal contributions at the moment, and that's what people give most emphasis for any forwards. With justification, it is what they need to do is score and assist. But there's also other things which they could bring into play. It's like with all the stuff, like Calvert-Lewin was as good earlier in the season as he has been recently. It's just his scoring goals. But now people are noticing all the outside the stuff he does away from scoring goals, like the aerial challenges, the duels that he wins, all the rest of the good stuff that he does. And you don't notice that when he's not scoring goals, you pick up on it more, and you praise everything, little single thing about an attacker. But when players like Okafor aren't scoring goals, you get on him constantly. And yeah, I don't like to see it, but I do kind of understand it. I think he's a bit desperate for a goal at the moment. Is Okafor? He's kind of snatching at chances sometimes, but the rest of his game is looking all right, in my opinion.
Yeah, just wanted to pick up on one thing you said about a certain Mr. Dominic Calvert-Lewin. Anthony Robinson contested 15 duels in the match. Raul Jimenez 15 duels. They were second and third. Calvert-Lewin was first with 20, and he won about half.
Yeah,
which is obviously not amazing, but the point is he's contesting 20 duels, and no one is even close to that for us. So he offers the team just so much. And he wasn't.
There's a few of those times where I noticed sorry to interrupt you, when he's lost a duel, the ball ends up going to one of our players because of how much of a good job he does in disrupting the defender.
And actually, I think he picks his moments quite well, because there are some that he definitely half-arses. But I think it's because he just knows he's not going to get there. He's maybe not positioned well enough to do it. The ball's maybe slightly over him, and the other defender's under it, so they're just going to win it, and it's easy. And he just kind of goes, I'll give you a little nudge, but I'm not going to go fully in because I don't want to injure myself. I don't want to injure you. I don't want to get in any trouble. So I'm just going to do a little one here. And then there are other ones where it's like obvious, where it's like, yeah, you need to go in for that. And he does, and he disrupts them. And sometimes it goes for us, and that's great. So he was also decent here, but yeah, for me, it was Ampadu. His defensive numbers weren't as good as I thought they were going to be when I had to look at the stats, but they were still pretty decent. But just like, he just seemed to be everywhere. I don't know. We don't get distance cover, which really annoys me. I wish we had that. But he must have been one of the top players for that. He was everywhere in this match, it felt like. And we needed him to step up with Stack-out as well. So hats off to him. We both agree, which is nice. Anything else you wanted to say? Any other stats you wanted to pull out? Or we end it?
We can end it. All good.
All right. Patreon.com/ASAW Patreon is where you can find all our stuff that's going to be on there. Don't forget to like and subscribe to us on YouTube. If you are watching right now, thank you very much. But it really helps us out if you do that little bit extra as well. That's all that we have time for, as we say tonight. We'll have some extra content for our patrons, which will be live, like I say, when you hear this, or it should be. If it's not, Martin will be about to do it. But Martin's put together an article on our shiny new toy, which is Facundo Buonanotte, of course. We'll be previewing Everton soon, and you're speaking to someone on this one, aren't you, Martin? Remind me?
Yes, we're getting the same guy in as we did in the previous one, Joel Parker, who was excellent last time round. So yeah, I'm recording that Wednesday night. I think we should be recording Thursday, maybe. We haven't sorted it out yet. But yeah, Wednesday night I'm recording that with him. So yes.
Lovely. And then, we'll be reviewing Everton next week. And it's nearly the end of the window, so there probably will be some extra stuff to go on the Patreon then as well. But all that's left for me to say, as ever, is thank you very much to Martin.
Thank you as well, mate.
And thank you, dear listeners. We hope that you enjoyed this one and hope you enjoy the rest of your week. We'll see you soon. Goodbye.